Sup you beautiful people. Hope you've had a fantastic day. Welcome back to another new episode of What If Deku Joined the League of Villains. Don't forget to shower some appreciation onto the incredible author responsible for this fanfiction. The link is conveniently waiting for you in the description box down below. If you guys enjoy this what if, comment down below and let me know. And go ahead and check out other what ifs in the channel after watching this video. Before we get into it though, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like, and also share this video with your friends. So let's start this video. The shouts and cheers in the pit returned shortly after Kendo's successful right hook to Kitamura, who was now fuming with anger. How dare this girl strike him? And after he had been generous enough to offer a chance to walk away. Well, that offer was now gone and thrown out the window. He would show her what her place was in Hades, and in general. Akuma watched with mild interest. That punch Kendo pulled just now. The way she turned her hips to give it power, she had been trained. He didn't know how well, but trained nonetheless. He wanted to watch and see what else she would do. Besides, it was rare for him to sit back and enjoy a fight, and one where he would witness Kitamura get a well-deserved ass-kicking. This was bound to be interesting. Mustard was more concerned about Kendo coming out in one piece. She was strong, he knew that, but Kitamura was no joke either. She would need to do everything she could to win. Kendo just got into a fighting stance, waiting impatiently for the match to start. As soon as the ref called it, the match began. Kitamura made the first move. Launching himself at Kendo, he rapidly released multiple punches, only for Kendo to turn each time and dodge. When one punch came, Kendo turned again, this time however grabbing his right wrist and twisting it into the hold with her left hand holding Kitamura down by the shoulder. She attempted to push him down further and put him into submission, but before she even got the chance, Kitamura used her momentum against her. He swung his body over and put her in a hold of his own. He then kneed her in the stomach. Kitamura smirked smugly. That's right, like that, he thought. Unfortunately for him, he was so focused on Kendo's head, he didn't notice her right leg swinging back to kick him on the head. The force from the kick caused Kitamura to yelp in pain and break the hold. Kendo wasn't finished. Before Kitamura could turn, she jumped and performed a reverse turning kick that sent Kitamura crashing face first into the steel cage. The crowd was roaring with many cheering for Kendo to win. Maybe I was worried for nothing, Mustard thought. If she keeps this up, she'll win no problem. Oh, how wrong he was. Kitamura turned to face her fully, with an expression of pure rage plastered across his face. You bitch. He snarled through his teeth. Okay, no more Mr. Nice Guy. This time I'm really going all out. Despite his threat, Kendo didn't look intimidated. After everything she had seen, she knew this guy was nothing to compare to. Still, she didn't lower her guard. Things were about to get difficult. Kitamura attacked her again, this time with more viciousness behind his strikes. He jabbed at Kendo, who barely managed to block. For each jab, she deflected it by using her hands to slightly alter the direction. However, as she continued to block, the jabs came quicker and more aggressive. Eventually, a strike did break through and hit Kendo across the face, breaking her concentration. Not wasting this opportunity, Kitamura advanced and punched her again, this time harder. Kendo staggered slightly and then suddenly, she found herself being punched again and again, despite her attempts to block it. Kitamura then ducked and performed a leg sweep, only for Kendo to jump up and dodge. With her suspended in the air, Kitamura spun gracefully and used his arms to position himself in a half-complete handstand, and then propel his leg straight into Kendo's chest. Kendo flew through the air until her back collided with the cage, and she fell to the ground. Kendo? Mustard shouted. Shit, this is bad. If this keeps up, she'll be walking out of here with broken bones. Akuma wasn't as concerned. Yes, the girl was hurt, but that happened in this kind of thing. She was holding her own though and doing a decent job of it. A normal person would have passed out by now, but she was still conscious. All that was left now was her comeback. This fight is far from over, the devil hero murmured. Come on now girl, show me what you got. Kendo, despite being in pain, managed to stand up again, much to Kitamura's annoyance. She took up a fighting stance to show that she was continuing, however, her injuries were plain to see. The left side of her face was red, meaning she'd see a bruise later, and a bit of blood flowing down her lip. Though she couldn't say for certain, Kendo believed she cracked a rib or two during that last attack. Ignoring the pain, Kendo dashed forward, while Kitamura did the same. Kendo brought her knee up as she jumped towards him. Seeing this, Kitamura sidestepped and punched her, only for Kendo to turn in time and catch it. Kitamura used his back leg to perform a turning kick, only for Kendo to duck under. Kitamura changed the trajectory of his leg, so it would come straight down on Kendo's head. However, Kendo allowed herself to drop and somersault, her head just narrowly missing the kick. As she somersaulted, she pulled her leg backwards and kicked Kitamura on the head with her heel. The impact sent him staggering. She tricked her opponent into leaving themselves wide open by giving them an open attack. Not bad, Akuma commented internally. Kitamura quickly recovered and launched another kick at Kendo's sides. However, this time she caught it in her left arm and brought her other arm's elbow down onto it. Kitamura yelled as she did it a second time, this one stronger than the last. She then swapped the arm she was using to pivot herself closer to her enemy, where she delivered 2 quick backfists to his face. Kitamura was looking slightly dazed, which Kendo took full advantage of. Still holding his leg, Kendo kicked at his other leg to get him on the ground. What happened next surprised everyone. Kendo took Kitamura's legs and positioned herself properly before dropping and placing him in a figure 4 lock. Kitamura howled in pain as she continued to apply pressure. "You bitch. That fucking does it. I'm ending this now," he silently declared. "The only way you're walking, or should I say being dragged, out of here now is bloody and unconscious. You'll regret having challenged me, you pathetic girl." Twisting his hips, he managed to reverse the hold and force her to release it. Before Kendo could stand up, Kitamura was on her. He dragged her up by the hair and then with incredible strength, lifted her up and slammed her down onto the ground, still holding her hair. Kendo landed face first, and it was quite painful. Kitamura pulled her up again and punched her hard in the face, causing her to spit out some blood. He then repeatedly kicked her in the stomach before sending her flying once again into the cage. "Okay, that's enough," Mustard shouted. "You've made your point. You don't need to go any further." Kitamura simply waved him off. She wanted this. So, she'll get the full treatment till the bitter end. Mustard couldn't believe what he was hearing. Wasn't it obvious to this man that he had won? Anyone could tell that from the state Kendo was in. There was blood coming from her mouth, there was a cut on the right side of her head where blood flowed out of it, not to mention she looked worn out. He was about to speak when Akuma stopped him. "Don't. No need." "What are you saying?" Mustard asked incredulously. Was he seriously okay with this? Akuma's eyes narrowed. "Look at her. Does she look like someone who's given up yet?" Mustard glanced at Kendo, who was trying to stand up. Akuma was right. If she's still breathing, she can still fight. So have a bit of faith in her. Mustard chose to just take his word for it. He had participated in these fights for a long time, so it made sense he would know. Kitamura was furious with Kendo. Damn it. What's it going to take to keep her down? Oh well, doesn't matter. This ends now. Kitamura dragged Kendo up once again, and attempted to run her into the cage walls. When he did, Kendo experienced a recent flashback shortly before she arrived here. Flashback. Kendo was on the ground being held down firmly by her opponent. It was a light spar, just a way to see what each other was capable of, nothing more. And she'd been doing well by getting her opponent in the same position, only to be reversed using a basic technique. "Would you like me to get up now?" her partner asked. "You can't escape, and I don't plan to move anytime soon. So?" Kendo sighed. There was nothing wrong with admitting defeat, depending on the person. "Yes, Midoriya, I'd like you to get up," Kendo answered. "You've won." Izuku stood up slowly and offered her his hand, which she graciously accepted. She had come here to the gym for a bit of physical training when she came across UA's newest transfer student, kicking some punching bags. They greeted each other, and he offered to spar, which she accepted. It was nice. There weren't many in her class she could spar with, martial arts wise that is. She'd only known Midoriya a short while, but already she liked him. He was smart, strong, and he got a class to stop their rivalry with Class 1 and focus more on training. He also managed to tone down Nito to a degree. As a friend, she liked him a lot, but his new personality could be really annoying sometimes. "You use multiple styles as well?" Izuku asked. "Yeah," Kendo confirmed. "I've been training in them for most of my life. You see, my quirk is Big Fist. As the name implies, it enlarges my hands, allowing me to carry more and give me extra strength. Well, it is useful. I chose to study martial arts as a way to widen my combat capabilities. If I just went in swinging my fists, it would make me predictable. Wouldn't you agree?" "True," Izuku acknowledged. "I had to learn martial arts so I could defend myself properly. It isn't easy being quirkless." Kendo had to acknowledge that. She was well aware of how quirkless people were treated and didn't agree with it at all. Although, Izuku was the first quirkless individual she'd ever met. "By the way, who exactly trained you?" she asked curiously. "Could they teach me anything?" Izuku instantly gave her a worried and panicked expression, much to her confusion. "Look, Kendo, you're a great girl, and please don't take this as me calling you weak or anything, but believe me when I say, you do not want the training I went through," Izuku warned, sweat appearing on his forehead. "I could only describe it to you as pure, absolute hell. And my teacher, she could be called the Devil's Incarnate. Their training was so intense that there were several times when I thought I was literally going to die." Kendo felt afraid of this person just by hearing about them. She had to be if she could make Midoriya react that way. Izuku quickly decided to change the subject. "Do you do any gymnastics?" he asked. Kendo frowned. "I know the basics." "Why?" "It's quite useful for moving around and getting out of certain situations," Izuku told her. He then faced the farthest wall. "Take this for example." He started running towards the wall. When he reached it, he placed his feet on the wall and started running up. He got 2 steps up, and on the 3rd step, he flipped backwards and landed successfully on both feet. Kendo was both impressed and shocked, speechless. She'd heard of something like that being possible to do, but this was the first time she had ever seen it. A feat like that required a lot of momentum, speed, and strength. It also took a lot of balance control. That is useful for both showing off and avoiding an enemy that's chasing you or trying to throw you into a wall, Izuku explained. You have to be incredibly quick about it, otherwise you'll end up falling. Kendo gave it a try herself but ended up falling on her back 3 times. Ow, she groaned. That hurt. This is really difficult. It just takes practice, that's all, Izuku responded. The main thing you need to do is not think about it. Kendo shot him a look that said, "Are you serious?" I know, it's a stupid saying, but actually pretty efficient, Izuku continued. Don't think about it all. Or rather, don't think of it as running up a wall, think of it as flashback end. Think of it as running down the road, then jumping. Kendo remembered as she came closer to the wall. Kitamura released her hair as he threw her, and Kendo took advantage. Following Izuku's advice, she didn't think about it at all. She imagined it as just running. Her foot connected with the wall, followed by the second, and finished by the third, which allowed her to leap over her opponent, while shoving him into the cage, using his momentum against him. Holy shit! Mustard exclaimed. Now that's what I call a comeback. Akuma complimented with a small hint of a smile appearing on his face. Kitamura barely registered what happened before he turned around, and was met with a reverse turning kick straight to the face, briefly dazing him and causing him to spit up some blood. I can't waste this chance, Kendo mentally shouted. Ignoring all pain she was feeling, Kendo let out a scream and smashed her fist against Kitamura's jaw. Kitamura could have sworn he felt one of his teeth break. With one punch successful, Kendo looked to do it again, this time aiming for his chest and ribs. She repeatedly punched him between the ribs and the face, not giving him a chance to counter. She then grabbed him by the shoulder and kneed him in the stomach with both her legs. Kitamura felt a bit of vomit come up, but he was too distracted by the blood in his mouth. This can't be happening, Kitamura thought disbelievingly. Kendo threw the man to the ground and secured herself on him so he couldn't get up. At that, she started punching him in the face, her shots becoming more aggressive by the second. The memory of her battle with the Quad Demal surfaced. How easily she'd been defeated. She punched with her right, and blood came from Kitamura's mouth out to the left. The memory of witnessing a bar almost violated. How hopeless and useless she felt. She punched with her left, and blood came from Kitamura's jaw to the right. Each memory fueled her anger and frustration, and it became a new power for her to use against her enemy. Finally, the memory of encountering Uwabami earlier, and how Kendo learned of her cowardice, of how most heroes were this way, made her burn with rage. It was that moment she stopped believing in heroes, that moment when realized the only way they would be saved was if they did it themselves. It was a hard truth about this world, but one she was forced to accept if she wanted to survive. With that final memory, she poured all her emotions, all her thoughts into that one final strike, giving it max power. Her fist collided with Kitamura's forehead. His eyes flickered briefly before they slowly closed shut. It was over. Standing up, she walked away, blood still on her hands. The audience was silent. Mustard was shocked at Kendo's brutal display at the end, though he figured it was just the heat of the moment. Kitamura isn't getting up, the announcer called. That means the winner is Itsuka Kendo. No sooner had he said that did the crowd start cheering loudly while rattling the cage. To Kendo, it all meant nothing as she slowly walked out with her injuries still present. Mustard came over and congratulated her, but she remained quiet. She possessed the look of a warrior tired from battle, not that anyone could blame her. Akuma looked at Kendo showing concern not outwardly, but inwardly. He knew that look when he saw her fighting. Deku had been the same after his first fight in the pit. Both of them had a lot of pent-up rages they released, all of which enabled them to win, only to look completely worn out afterwards. Let's get you to the hospital for treatment, Mustard suggested. After what you just went through, you definitely need it. Kendo didn't say anything. She just went along with it. Akuma, for reasons he didn't yet reveal, followed after them. Class 1AB homeroom. Nito stood in front of his 2 teachers who wore neutral expressions. So, what did you want to talk with me about? He asked confused. Why did you request that Shinso take part in this exercise? Aizawa asked bluntly. Nito was a little, but not entirely, surprised by that question. He knew it was a possibility that they would ask him, but he didn't actually think they would do it. Of all the students at this school, why him? Aizawa pressed. Nito bit his lip, silently pondering over his response. When he did speak, he spoke clearly and truthfully. I wasn't lying when I said it would be a good experience for him, nor about his quirk being powerful, Nito admitted. However, I thought it would be a better idea if you saw it yourselves. Now that they were curious. And why is that? Vlad asked. Shinso has a lot of potentials to be a hero, and a very efficient one at that, Nito explained. His quirk could take down villains with a minimal casualty to the surrounding area. Also, he's quite smart and creative about how he uses his quirk and the questions he asks. During the sports festival, he managed to get further than any other Gen Ed student did, and even managed to take down students in the hero course. In my opinion, he should have been transferred to the hero course after the tournament, especially since there was an open spot, but he wasn't. As a matter of fact, he should have been in the hero course in the beginning. The only reason he wasn't was because of that bullshit entrance exam. The teachers frowned at his language. Sorry, but it's true. That exam is only good for people with quirks like Kendo or Tetsu. Brainwashing can't exactly be used against a robot unless you're controlling someone into attacking it. Therefore, it wasn't fair for people like Shinso, his quirks aren't suited towards that sort of thing. As a result, a lot of potentials is going to waste. The two teachers were surprised and impressed that Nito would go out of his way for another student who's not part of his class. You're right. He should have been in the hero course, but he wasn't, Aizawa admitted, much to Nito's surprise. Believe me, I've wanted him in the hero course for a long time, but it wasn't allowed due to other people's stupid reasons. Aizawa didn't even attempt to hide the venom in his voice. Personally, I would like to train him and help him improve so he can undergo another examination. One where he would be able to show off all his abilities to their fullest potential. Nito was stunned. He had no idea Aizawa was planning something like this. Then again, it wasn't like it was Nito's business to know what Class 1A's teacher was planning. When you say the fullest potential, does that mean this exam will involve people? He asked. Since Satoshi's quirk was brainwashing, it made sense to use humans as opponents, so the teachers could properly assess it. Aizawa simply nodded to confirm. We've been told before that the entrance exam isn't fair. Eraser has even had lengthy arguments with Principal Nezu over it, Vlad mentioned, eyeing his companion. And he's right. However, it's incredibly hard to create an exam where everyone's quirks can be evaluated when they all have different types. Nito couldn't deny the truth in that. Despite this, we will take into consideration what he has done and put it forward to Principal Nezu, Vlad informed him. Now isn't really the best time though because of what's going on with Hades. Nito understood, and he didn't mind either. If Hitachi was given a chance, that's all that mattered. Thank you, he said. If that's all, I'd better get back. The two teachers nodded and watched him leave. Vlad sighed. Nito was changing and he was happy for that, however, he was still struggling for a way to get him to open up about his family life and how he treated him. It would take time, but contrary to his appearance, he was a patient man, and he could wait for answers. Izuku Midoriya. Izuku was currently in the student common room typing on his laptop. The raid would be happening soon, and despite feeling that they wouldn't win, Izuku wanted to give them their best chance against their enemies. He quickly typed up a list of Hades members, and their quirks and skills. This extended to slaves as well. The Hero Commission would definitely want to know all about the heroes held there, as well as the teams Shiro employed. With his memory mostly returned, it was easier to picture who lived there. However, he made certain to focus only on the people, rather than events. Lest he has another panic attack. His thoughts were interrupted as he felt someone come up behind him, though he didn't need to guess who. Hello Tagata, to what do I owe this honor? Izuku sarcastically asked. Mirio gasped. How did you know it was me? Earlier today you wanted to meet me, then after the training session, going by your attitude and body language, I could tell you were going to try something similar later, Izuku explained. I can be really easy for people to read, but I'm good at reading others myself. Mirio was impressed. The principal wasn't kidding when he said he was observant. I'm gonna cut right to the chase, what do you want? Izuku bluntly questioned. You've caught my interest, Mirio said. You're a villain, yet you've done heroic things, and now you've got two major villains after you. One from your own group, the other the boss of Hades. I want to know what your story is. Izuku scoffed hearing that. And just why I should tell you that. You and I are strangers. There's no reason for you to know. Ironically, he had been strangers with a lot of people when he told them. Though it was only specific people for specific reasons, except for Mina. He told Stain because he felt he would understand given the nature of his crusade. He told Crawler because he was a vigilante and didn't think he'd just go bragging about it to anyone, and there was the heat of the moment from the Nomu attacking Hosu. He told Tenya because he trusted him. And he told Shoto, and to a certain extent Hitachi because he felt he could relate to them. Other than that, he didn't just go around randomly telling people his story. Mirio frowned. Izuku did have a point. Although that wouldn't discourage him. Well, alright then. I wouldn't ask, Mirio declared. Izuku raised an eyebrow. Really? He found it hard to believe that Mirio would give up that easily. Mirio nodded. Sure. It's your story. If you don't want to talk about it, that's fine, I won't force you. While Izuku was relieved to hear that, he doubted Mirio was finished. And he was right. Can you tell me about those two guys who are after you? They sound really strong, Mirio requested. I can't tell you anything about Atrocity, Izuku stated. I've never met him. I don't know what his quirk is, and I don't even know what he looks like. All I know is that he's a sadist, a xenophobic tyrant who runs a section of the league. Izuku found it quite strange that someone who hunted him for so long knew very little about them. Barring what he had heard, he knew almost nothing about Atrocity. As for Shiro, he's really strong, Izuku emphasized. When he fights, regardless of who it's with, he'll always take it seriously and keep going at it until he's the victor. When dealing with an enemy, hero, or villain, he'll crush them with extreme prejudice, though he doesn't always kill them. If that person, along with their group, surrenders, then depending on whether Shiro likes them or not, he'll either kill them or offer them to join his slaves. He rules Hades with an iron fist. However, he isn't entirely a bad person. Everyone who works for him, free or slave, he looks after and protects as his own. He can be quite cruel when he wants to be, but he's also fair. He doesn't discriminate against anyone and only punishes those who deserve it. Mirio listened with keen interest. Shiro was dangerous, but the way Izuku described him, he sounded like a leader looking after his own country. Because of the way he acts, Shiro named his group Hades after the Greek god of the underworld. Hades was a god feared by many due to his association with death, which caused people to see him as the devil. However, this isn't true. According to mythology, he was strict, but he was also fair when judging the dead, Izuku explained. Shiro wanted his organization to be the same. He's feared by many, but he treats everyone equally. As a result, everyone in Hades, and those out of it like myself, have a great deal of respect towards him. Despite their history, Izuku legitimately did respect Shiro. He was a good leader, much like All for One. Then there's his quirk, light form. Using that, he can manipulate light to match his desires. He can shoot it out, materialize it like a whip as well as other weapons, and make himself invisible. He can do other things, but I don't know what they are, Izuku admitted. I didn't see him in action enough to know what his true abilities were. Although, he did tell me one thing about his quirk that makes it very similar to yours. Mirio's ears perked up at this. Shiro's quirk was like his. Did that mean it was originally? Light form might sound powerful, but it didn't start off like that. When he was a child, all Shiro could do was emit light, like all he could do was glow, Izuku explained. It was only after he started training and experimenting that it got stronger. When it did, he started calling his quirk light form. Mirio, for the briefest of seconds, felt a flicker of admiration for Shiro. Like him, his quirk had been weak, and he turned it into a force to be reckoned with. Wow, now I kind of want to meet him, he exclaimed, causing Izuku to shoot him a look. Tagada, the only way you're ever going to meet Shiro is if he captures you and turns you into one of his slaves, Izuku deadpanned. Which is more likely to happen after he defeats All Might. All Might won't lose, Mirio argued. He's All Might, he can't lose. Izuku noticed that his demeanor had turned slightly more serious. He wasn't surprised. A long time ago he had believed the same thing until life had taught him what reality was like. All Might is a man Tagada, not a god, and like any other man he can be beaten if the conditions are right, Izuku stated. The fact that he hasn't lost up until now is irrelevant. He can and will be beaten. There's a major difference between All for One and Shiro that will allow him to win, and that's Shiro is perfectly healthy. All for One fought All Might in a weakened condition with his body barely running, not to mention he was blind. The man had to use an infrared quirk to see his surroundings for years. Mirio was beyond shocked. He'd known All for One was powerful, but to fight All Might in a condition like that alone was worthy of praise. If was that powerful while weakened, then just how strong was Shiro? Maybe I'm wrong, maybe All Might will win, I don't know. Just don't get your hopes up, Izuku warned. Even if All Might does win, that doesn't mean anyone will be rescued. I know you don't want to hear this because of how pessimistic it is, but you need to hear it. Not everyone in this world gets saved. And I'm not just saying this for things like accidents or captivity, I mean in general. There's always someone in plain sight who's suffering, crying out for help but never being noticed. That's what the state of the world is. Mirio wanted to argue that things weren't as dark as Izuku was making them out to be, but shut his mouth. The way Izuku said it, how he looked during it, was as if he had experienced it firsthand. Mirio had met different types of villains out on his internship. While some had proven to be nothing more than low-life thugs, there were a select few who'd become villains due to how they'd been wronged. Bullying, loss of someone close to them, racial prejudice, the list went on. That's how he knew villains weren't born evil, they were victims of circumstance. He wondered if Izuku was the same. Since we're talking about heroes, do you mind if I ask you something? Izuku asked. Go for it, Mirio responded. When you become a hero, do you have a costume that works with your quirk, or are you planning to go naked the entire time? Izuku asked with little emotion. Mirio stared at him dumbfounded, wondering if he'd heard him correctly. It's your choice and all, and there have been heroes in the past that went half naked, but they always covered themselves, so, Izuku went on. Also, I don't think parents will be too happy with it considering. No, Mirio frantically denied. His face flushed red with embarrassment. I've got a suit made from strands of my hair, so I'll be covered while using my quirk. If I went naked the entire time I'd be arrested. Izuku laughed. Sorry, I get it. It was just something on my mind, that's all. Mirio's face was still red. It had, surprisingly, been the first time someone had asked him that. It's not like he enjoyed it. It just happened whenever his quirk was activated. Although he had done it so many times, and during the sports festival, he'd gotten used to it. Still, the idea of using it as his hero costume unnerved him. Most heroes fully cover themselves, so it really stands out when certain parts of them aren't covered. Akuma is always angry at civilians commenting on him not wearing a shirt, even though it makes it easier for him to use his quirk, Izuku said. People also find it weird that he goes barefoot because it's old-fashioned. Mirio could understand that to a certain degree. Part of Tamaki's costume required him to go barefoot so he could fully use his quirk. People often questioned it, but he gave them the same answer. "What's your hero name?" Izuku asked politely. Mirio grinned. "Lemillion," he declared proudly. Izuku looked confused. The name sounded unusual. "I called myself that because one day I hope to save 1,000,000 people." Izuku's blinked. It wasn't the worst name he'd heard. "When you say save 1,000,000, do you mean all at once or gradually over the course of your life?" Izuku asked. "Hahaha, believe me, I'd love to save 1,000,000 at once, but I don't think it's possible right now, so I'm sticking with over my life," Mirio answered honestly. "Well, good luck with that," Izuku wished him. "Something like that will take a very long time. But that's why it's worth working for," Mirio responded enthusiastically. Izuku nodded as he continued typing. "Oh, are you doing homework?" Mirio asked. "I'm typing up a list of Hades members for the police for when the raid commences," Izuku told him. "I promised I would." "Oh, I see," Mirio realized. "Well, I'll be going then. Sorry I interrupted you." "It's fine," Izuku reassured him. "You didn't know. Still, thanks for today. It was actually entertaining." A big smile flashed across Mirio's face. "Then that's my victory of the day," he exclaimed. Izuku, from the corner of his mouth, let out a small smile, much to Mirio's delight. Mirio got up and started to leave so Izuku could do his work. He briefly considered offering to introduce him to Sir Night-Eye, but decided against it. Izuku was right, they had only met today. He didn't want to rush things just yet, especially since he already had a lot going on with Hades. As he walked away, Izuku resumed his assignment. From talking with Mirio, Izuku decided that he was an okay guy. If he were to pick a favorite out of the big three, it would definitely be Tamaki. He felt he could relate to him. Nijire, for many reasons, was his least favorite. Razor. It took a while, but Sebastian finally got all the information about Hades, as well as some new facts that came up. "Razor," he addressed. "Before you do anything, there's something you need to know. This was only about a month or two ago, but it's Ivy. She's there." Razor nearly dropped the phone in shock. Flashback. A 10-year-old Razor was running as fast as she could. She stopped as the sun blinded her eyes. Just then, there was a girl with long luscious red hair standing out in front of her holding out her hand. "Ray, come on. Magma's waiting just up ahead," the girl called in a soft beautiful voice. Flashback end. Of her two friends of Hades, Ivy was the one who chosen to live her life outside it, after falling in love with a man who was immune to her powers. She had 2 children, who Razor had met numerous times. Some referred to her as Aunt Razor. They were the rare people she displayed her soft side to. "How's it even possible?" Razor whispered. "Ivy might not be a member anymore, but there's no way she could have been caught off guard that easily." "I don't know," Sebastian admitted. "There were reports about her and few others in the area she lives in who mysteriously went missing. No one's sure how it happened. Though I think it's safe to say Hades was involved. They've done this sort of thing before, how this would be any more difficult." Razor scowled. The way she held the phone, it was a miracle she hadn't broken it. "Thanks, Sebastian," Razor said. "Now if you please, send over the information. Because now I'm going to plan how I'll slice up that bastard in 12 different ways." "Sure thing," Sebastian responded quickly. "Good luck, Razor. Bring them both home." He hung up, and the information was sent directly to her phone. Once that was done, Razor punched the wall right next to her and created a small crater. Stain stood silently during all this. He had not met Ivy personally, but he knew who she was to Razor. He also knew how dangerous she was. Ivy wasn't as physically strong, or as good at martial arts as her friends, but she made up for it with the dangerous use of her quirk. Razor panted heavily before calming down. She was going to kill Shiro. She was going to put every blade she could think of through his body. And when she did, she would get her friend. She had very few people she cared about, very few. However, if someone messed with them, they messed with her. And she would show no mercy. Hades. The hospital. The trio walked into the hospital. As usual, it was busy with doctors and nurses running around to attend to patients. Anyone who'd been captured that had a history in the medical industry or had a quirk suited to healing in some way. As soon as they entered, Akuma called for the nearest doctor, who upon seeing Kendo, immediately called another doctor to her, and one did. A male with brown eyes and long dark hair tied in a ponytail. He was slightly shorter than Akuma, and wore a traditional doctor's uniform, as well as a surgical mask. "Dr. Iwatani," Akuma breathed. "Akuma, I'm not surprised to see you here, but this girl," Dr. Iwatani started. "It was Kitamura, not me," he quickly defended. "I can attest to that," Monsieur piped up. Dr. Iwatani looked between both and could tell they were being honest. Whatever the case, we will discuss it in my office where you will be getting treatment, young miss, Dr. Iwatani informed, the tone of his voice leaving no room for argument. Kendo nodded silently and followed. Izuku Midoriya. Izuku lay flat on his back as recounted the day's events. He had submitted his list to Nezu, who passed it on to the Hero Commission, not that he cared. A large part of him just wanted to disappear and never show up again. He hadn't asked for this, for any of it. He hadn't asked for a lot of things in his life, but he got them anyway. Wasn't it the same for a lot of people? He was trying to live like Sensei would have wanted him to, but it was just so hard. At times he questioned what Sensei would have done in this situation, but could never find the answer. You know you can't keep running from this, right? A voice Izuku knew but had forgotten a long time ago asked. You're going to have to face him eventually. Why not now? He turned and saw a figure laying right next to him. He looked exactly the same as the last time Izuku had seen him. Same green jacket, same black shirt and trousers, same white gloves, same mask, same auburn hair, and same golden piercing eyes. The leader of the Yakuza stared at him with a bored expression. Hello Izuku, he greeted. Izuku was so shocked that he just said the first thing that came to mind. Hello Kai. Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed. If you want the next part of this video, like, subscribe and comment down below, and turn on the bell notification. And also check out other videos that I have created and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.